Hi, I'm Amy,
And I'm Neil.
and we are
Nerds Over 40. Welcome, Nerdmigos, episode 2.
Welcome back.
Numero dos.
Thank you for joining us. Today, what are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the 80s.
1980s.
1980s. Neil, how old were you in 1980?
I turned 8 in 1980.
And so the 80s were your childhood, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So 8 to 18.
Yeah, I graduated from high school in 1990. I was class of 90. So that kind of, yeah.
So I was 11 in 1980. So 11 to 21. That's so some of my childhood and all of my teenage years were in the 80s, which frankly, in my opinion, was the best decade to be a teenager. I think probably a lot of people would agree with that because the 80s they're back, baby. They're popular.
They didn't really leave.
I guess not.
I mean, it's kind of funny because in the 80s, people look back at the 60s.
Right.
In the 90s, that didn't really change that much. Nobody ever got real nostalgic for the 70s. 70s were kind of a bad time, I think.
Well, you just don't like 70s music.
Well, some 70s music was great.
Or fashion.
Nobody likes 70s fashion. Nobody. But there's a, we had Vietnam was coming to an end, and there's just a lot of bad stuff that happened during the 70s. And I mean, I think that's part of, I think our experience in the 80s was rebounding from that too. So you had a much sunnier, more positive sort of attitude in the 80s than they had for the decade before that.
And it was fun being a kid in the 80s. I mean, there's all these comedians who talk about it now like we were the last generation of feral children, and there was something on the 10 o'clock news, do you know where your children are at 10 o'clock? And, we were drinking out of hoses, and our parents never knew where we were or cared.
I don't know. I mean, my parents, I was home by 10 o'clock. I don't know who these, actually I do know some of these feral kids now that I think about it, but I mean, I was raised by parents who wouldn't let me go to an R-rated movie, but I would walk 6 blocks to go to the park by myself, and this was before I was 10 years old. And 10, 11, 12, they'd turn me loose on a bike and I'd be gone all day, during, over to a friend's house or just wherever. But
I mean, I grew up in LA and we had like serial killers and the Hillside Strangler and the Night Stalker, and nobody seemed too worried about that. Little bit, but I walked myself to school in 3rd grade. I wasn't a big concern.
I was walking to school in 1st grade, and then in junior high for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, the school was a mile away. That was a mile each direction. And
in the snow?
In the snow sometimes. I was living in West Texas, and I remember one time we had a ice storm blow in, and it coated everything in this layer of ice. And so you're walking on the sidewalk, and then you get to the driveway, and there's a slope. And so you step into the driveway, and you slide into the gutter, and then you have to walk in the gutter until you get back to the other side. But yeah, we weren't. I mean, I don't think I was feral necessarily. Oh, I wonder what my parents would say.
His mother did carry a wooden spoon in her purse, but
we did have a lot of freedom, and we weren't as scheduled as kids seem to be now.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like kids now, it's like they just go from one scheduled activity to the next, whereas we were like, go out and play, get out of the house. And that was it. Nobody was planning my every moment of every day when I was a kid. I grew up in LA, so I did not walk to school in the snow, though I did live in the snow for a couple years in the 80s. I'll get to that in a moment. But for most of the 80s, I was in Los Angeles, and there was no snow. Serial killers, but no snow.
There are trade-offs. There are trade-offs.
Come see, come saw. So anyway, let's talk about the feel of the 80s. And you see this now in either depictions of the 80s or kind of throwbacks to the 80s, but what felt like the 80s. So my first category, I would say, would be the music. And we're not going to do a deep dive on that because we may do a whole episode on 80s music. But just to touch on it, so what made something sound like the 80s to you, like a song?
Oh, Jump, off of the 1984 album by Van Halen. It's you've got Eddie Van Halen, one of the best guitarists ever to stride the earth, and he's playing a synthesizer.
Yeah. Synth music, digital music, that really kind of came into its own in the 80s. And I would say kind of the marriage of the visual with the music also came into its own. So MTV, right? We all wanted our MTV.
I still want my MTV.
Yeah, well, MTV is gone.
Not that MTV.
Yeah, not today's MTV, our MTV. But who didn't listen to Dire Straits' Money for Nothing and Sting singing in the background, I Want My MTV? That is the epitome of an 80s song to me. So, and it changed kind of the way we viewed things. So what was the first music video on MTV?
Oh, it was Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yes.
The Buggles.
The Buggles. So it changed the way we looked at things. And do you remember the hype over Thriller coming out? They released it in theaters too. And then they also released it on MTV, but it was more than a music video. It was like a mini movie with Michael Jackson.
Well, I remember the groundswell around Michael Jackson before the Thriller video even happened. I remember a friend of mine had taped I think it was the Motown, some sort of Motown gala where he performed Billie Jean and then he moonwalked. And
we all tried to moonwalk.
Oh, I could totally moonwalk.
I could not moonwalk.
It's really a question of what...
Moonwalking was not good for me.
Of what, what you had on your feet and what sort of surface you were on. Because really
and how
good
coordinated you are. And I am not coordinated.
Well, really, really good moonwalkers can do it on anything with anything. But, socks on mom's linoleum, I could moonwalk pretty well.
I can do the time warp, but I can't move.
Okay. All right. Back to the 80s.
And I digress. We do that a lot. Okay, so music. Movies. So what looks like an 80s movie? I would say that part of it is they were still using practical effects, puppets. Remember puppets in the 80s?
Yeah.
So who are some famous 80s puppets?
Well,
or outfits with somebody in it.
Well, Jabba the Hutt, right?
Yeah, Jabba.
And then what was his little buddy's name?
The little mouse guy, the little obnoxious. Yeah, that guy.
Anyway.
If anyone knows, tell us in the comments.
I'm sure there are people who know. Yeah, I know it, but I just can't remember his name right now. But E.T. was a puppet. The Dark Crystal. That was done by Jim Henson, wasn't it? Yeah. So that was. Yoda was a big puppet, and he had Frank Oz do his voice too.
Right.
Talk about some spillover there.
Not to mention shows that just totally featured puppets, like the Muppets. Like the Muppets was huge.
Oh, you asked me about a favorite childhood television show. That was a great show.
The Muppets was awesome, and they had great guest stars.
Guest stars on there.
The music was fun,
and I think so. I watched it as a kid, obviously. But I think it was actually somewhat entertaining for adults to watch, too.
Now we're the two guys up in the balcony talking shit.
Oh, yeah. The critics.
The two curmudgeons who hate everything.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not us, but
I
can kind of relate.
But yeah, I can definitely relate.
But everybody had their favorite Muppet, and yeah.
Who's your favorite Muppet?
Well, I don't know if he was a Muppet. He was more on on Sesame Street, but I liked Snuffleupagus.
Yeah.
Snuffleupagus was cool.
If we're going to include Sesame Street.
I like Fozzie Bear.
I'm pretty basic. I mean, I'd probably be Big Bird or Kermit would be my, those would be my favorites. Of course, Fozzie was great.
Animal.
Gonzo was hilarious.
Animal was cool.
Yeah. Well, for a brief time, like in 3rd or 4th grade, one of the cool kids tried to make this thing happen where everyone would get a Muppet nickname.
This is somebody like you went to school with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't last for very long.
Which Muppet were you?
I was Dr. Teeth.
Okay. I know the Electric Mayhem.
Yeah. Which actually
don't challenge me on my 80s Muppet
as kind of an outcast nerd, I felt like, whew, I dodged a bullet, I at least got assigned something, so
I may not know who Jabba's little friend was, but I know what band Dr.
His
Keith
name
was in.
is right on the tip of my
I
tongue
know, it's bugging
too.
me too. All right, so you did see a lot of like animatronics, you saw a lot of puppets.
Well, Jaws was, I mean, of course, that was the
Yeah.
70s, but of course, Jaws 2, 3, however many.
He still lives at Universal Studios. You take the tram around and he swims right up to you.
Hey,
He's still
Jaws,
there.
Jaws 3 in 3D. For my birthday, we went to go see that
I
at the
saw it
theaters.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
That, and it was a different kind of 3D than they have now.
It
Like
wasn't as good,
there,
yeah.
yeah, but there was like stuff flying at you. Like
Well,
the harpoon flew at you, and then when Jaws blew up, pieces of the shark kind of flew at you. I will say first, like I'd like to point out spoilers, but it was from the 80s. Like when we're talking about things, the shark does blow up in Jaws 3D. In case you didn't see it.
yeah, my bad.
We're-
Spoilers.
We're going to be spoiling things. We're going to be
I'm
talking
sure
about
some
things.
of you are very disappointed.
So,
You're not going to be able to see Jaws 3 now because I spoiled it.
oh, they could totally see it, but just get ready for the shark to
I don't
fly
think
at
you
you.
can spoil that movie.
I don't know. It spoiled itself. I
Well,
think.
so I think so. Here's the difference even between 3D now and 3D then is now they're putting 3D on in post production, so it's basically a normal movie that they just give some 3-dimensional effects to.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just like pumping up here's the 3D and like throwing it in your face.
Did they do Avatar in 3D? I think we saw it in 3D.
Avatar was made for 3D. Yeah.
I don't know what else I've seen in 3D recently. If I have the choice, I choose against 3D usually. I don't know why. It just doesn't add anything for me.
I think we saw the second Fantastic Beasts in 3D, and that movie was just dark anyway. It was hard to see anything, and then with those glasses on, it felt like I was straining to see anything the whole movie.
That movie didn't do it for me.
No, that whole series was pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
And I think that's being kind.
Okay. So tell me about 80s style.
Well, so some things that I remember were Polo Cologne too, because that stinky stuff, every adolescent was bathed in that crap.
I don't remember how that smelled, but I do remember the smell of Drakkar Noir.
Oh.
I have a Drakkar Noir story. Would you like to hear my Drakkar Noir story?
To your Drakkar Noir story.
So when I was in high school, again, I lived in Los Angeles, and one of my friends wanted to go to Laser Floyd. So if you don't know what Laser Floyd is, we went to see it at the Griffith Observatory, very famous observatory in Los Angeles. It's where Rebel Without a Cause was filmed, several other movies.
If you're in LA, it's worth your time.
Yeah. But they used to do this thing where in the, I don't know, what's the room where they show the
planetarium.
The planetarium. They had these seats where you would put your head back and look up at the ceiling, and they would project things up there, so that they would project like lasers going off in time to the Pink Floyd music. It was the wall.
Hey, our crowd knows what Laser Floyd is, or Laser Zeppelin, or all that stuff.
If you've been to Laser Floyd, comment. But anyway, this was before they updated the planetarium, so they had these horribly uncomfortable headrests that were wood. It was like a wood U-shaped, and you'd lean your head back into this wood U-shaped. So my friend Melissa, shout out Melissa, her younger brother had a crush on me,
Shout out younger brother.
Chris. And so he decided he was going to come along to this thing. And I don't know if he thought he was going to be seductive or what, but he put approximately half a bottle of Drakkar Noir on and insisted on sitting next to me. So I'm sitting in this seat at the Griffith Observatory. I have my head back in this wooden headrest. There's this cloud of Drakkar Noir surrounding me. They have Pink Floyd cranked up and then all these lasers going off. And it was a complete assault on all of my senses. And I had the most unbelievable headache when I got out of there.
Was there any weed being smoked in there?
Nobody smoked weed in the planetarium at the Griffith Observatory. I would be willing to bet that people smoked weed before and after.
Oh, okay.
But not my group. We were not weed smokers. We were wine cooler drinkers.
The closest thing I ever got to Laser Floyd was one of the classic rock stations had a viewing of Pink Floyd The Wall at a theater. I was in high school, and me and a buddy went to go see that, and someone blazed up in there.
Yeah. No.
But it wasn't. It certainly wasn't me. But
Yeah. Yes, weed at the Hollywood Bowl, no weed at Griffith Observatory.
well,
At least was my
it's
experience.
indoors, outdoors, so it's
Yes.
just polite not
was,
to blaze
was
up
my
indoors.
experience.
Of course, smoking in a theater is a bad idea anyway, right?
But anyway, that I don't even know how we got to that story. But clothing.
Clothing and scents,
Drakkar
right?
Noir.
So Drakkar Noir was hot back
I
then in the
wore
80s.
Love's Baby Soft, which smelled like baby powder. That was
I wore Polo, which in retrospect I smelled it like
I thought it was your brother who wore.
no, this was in
Sorry,
the
Noah.
90s though. This was in the 90s for my brother, but he got into this crap called Yope, and the whole house reeked of that crap. That and his sweaty basketball friends. Oh, it was terrible. I mean, too many adolescents. No. Sorry, Noah.
So what did I wear?
You know you stunk.
I wore Guess jeans. So my grandmother used to take me school shopping every year before school started, and basically would just kind of sit down and I shopped at Contempo Casuals and Miller's Outpost. Those were my two favorite places to shop, and I liked Guess jeans. My shoes were K-Swiss. I did have a members only jacket back in the day, like junior high. And then once I got to high school, I pretty much lived in my marching band jacket after that.
But jean jackets were big back then
Oh yeah,
too.
I had a very cool jean jacket that had all sorts of flaps and buckles, and it acid washed. It was very 80s. It was awesome.
Well, and like where I was in West Texas, sixth grade, my best friend says to me, Neil, we're going to seventh grade. We're going to junior high next year. I cannot hang out with you if you're still wearing Wrangler's jeans. This kind of came out of nowhere because I didn't know anyone paid attention to pants.
That's
But-
because you weren't a girl.
Clearly.
Girls pay attention to pants.
But, and should I be worried that my best friend's paying attention to my pants? But anyway, and I'm like, well, what kind of jeans do I wear? And he said Levi's 501s. So
Were they button fly?
oh
I had
yeah,
button
501s
fly.
are button
Okay.
fly. But I go to my mom and I tell her, listen, I'm going to be a pariah next year if I'm still wearing Wranglers. And God bless him, my cheap dad allowed himself to be convinced by my mom to buy 501 jeans so that I could drift away from my best friend anyway when I hit junior high.
At Miller's Outpost, that's where you buy 501 jeans. But I don't know if you guys had Miller's Outpost. in
I
Texas.
don't even remember
We
where
did.
we bought them. But then in ninth grade, Coca-Cola T-shirts were a big deal. You had rugby shirts, long sleeve shirts, with the polo neck, and then they had the white strip across the middle, and they had rubber buttons. They were rugby shirts, and they were Coca-Cola rugby shirts. And that was the height of fashion in West Texas.
Who knew?
And my mom by this point had graduated from college, and so we now had a dual income family. So my parents, they opened up the purse strings a little bit. So I finally started getting some of this stuff, and we moved in the middle of my ninth grade year. And we moved to South Carolina, and I'm wearing these Coca-Cola shirts because I am cool. And one of my friends in school asks me, does your dad work at Coca-Cola? And I think that was the last time I ever wore one of those shirts.
That's a sad story.
I mean, talk about and just a complete culture shock. No one cared, or at least no one seemed to care to me, or at least no one cared enough to say anything. Now, I was so far from popular once I moved away. I didn't even know who the cool kids were in high school. That's how far from it I was.
Well, growing up in LA, there was definitely kind of a surfer influence and a skater influence. So slip-on Vans, like the checkerboard slip-on Vans, and I think Fast Times at Ridgemont High kind of started that.
Jordans. I had a pair of Air Jordans that I think I had some depression as a teenager, so my parents bought me Jordans, and it worked. Better
Okay.
than Prozac, man.
All right, they should have used that. Also, where I was, like OP swimwear, Ocean Pacific, like so.
Yeah, that was big. That was actually what I wore in South Carolina. It was
Yeah.
OP.
So those are looks from the 80s. There were things from movies that kind of became a thing. So like Flashdance, the one shoulder sweatshirt. We were all like ripping the shoulders out of our
I've
sweatshirts.
seen some people wearing sweaters off of one shoulder again.
Everything comes back around. Wayfarer sunglasses, that was a Tom Cruise thing.
Yeah.
The bomber jackets from Top Gun. Then there were some really unfortunate things that happened in the 80s. The shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I've told the story of I'd have a shirt on that had shoulder pads and then a jacket that had shoulder pads too. And my shoulders would be up to my cheekbones. I'd be like ripping shoulder pads out of everything. One of my least favorite styles in the 80s were stirrup pants. Those things are incredibly uncomfortable to walk around with these stirrups underneath your feet. Horrible. Spandex was huge. All of the
Spandex
kind of
was coming into
the aerobics kind of look.
leg warmers,
I had
acid wash jeans. Did you mention acid wash?
I think I did, but yeah, acid wash jeans, neon, like sweatshirts that were neon.
Yeah, lots of neon.
We crimped our hair. You probably
I didn't.
I did. And you would take Aquanet and you spray your hair down and then use the crimping iron on it. And it would sizzle. You'd hear your hair sizzling and smoke would be coming out of the crimping iron.
The thing y'all do for beauty, man.
Hey,
it's just...
That's the way you hold it, though. That you could be in a hurricane and that stuff would not move if you did that. I never did the big hair, like the big bangs or anything like that, but I did do the crimping. That was a thing. So that's how we looked. What else is a hallmark of the 80s? I would say product placement. Virtually everything you watched, either TV or movies, there was huge product placement and also celebrities endorsing things. Like,
well, so things I remember about the 80s is that was when they first started enforcing seatbelt laws or passing seatbelt laws. So suddenly, seatbelt laws were a thing, and that was kind of interesting. That there are people that resisted. I don't think we remember now, but there are people who like hated the idea of seatbelts, and
I thought it was fascist.
It was a conspiracy.
Yeah,
I think my granddad was one of them, but people would, they hated having to buckle their seatbelts.
Yeah, I remember riding around the back of my friend's pickup truck. You can't do that now with seatbelts.
Well, and I kind of miss, my parents had a Dodge Aspen wagon, which is one of the worst cars ever made, with a faux wood paneling on the side, and my brother and I sometimes we would be in the back compartment of that car, and no one thought twice about it. Child care, child seating. Now, if you weigh under a certain amount, it doesn't matter how old you are. You're supposed to be wearing, in a child seat. So
that is true. They were trying to keep us alive.
No bike helmets. All that protective gear. No, and I used to be kind of snotty about that, but now it's like, you watch these. I watch fail videos, and I'm like, why weren't you wearing a helmet now?
Well, I went over the handlebars of my bike and landed on my face and broke my nose in the 80s. I probably should have been wearing a helmet, but was not.
A lot of trash has been talked about LA in the last 30 years, but LA was the city of the 80s probably, if you had to choose a city. You had the 1984 Olympics were in LA. Mm-hmm. So much of our culture revolves around it just because that's the place where the media is based for those. It's either New York or Los Angeles.
Right.
I think probably in the 80s, we had a president from California. So there was a lot of, that was a good decade for LA.
Well, I was born in the Valley. The Valley is the San Fernando Valley, if you don't know. And when I was born, I lived in Sherman Oaks, which is the kind of the center of the Valley, Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys, that area. But I moved to Glendale in 77 when my sister was born. But I don't remember ever speaking necessarily like a Valley girl, though I do say like a lot. I'm noticing that in the course of this podcast.
Well, that might be an 80s thing too, because I think a lot of people of our age use the, overuse like.
Yeah, and it may be area specific too. So growing up in California, we use the word dude a lot. And dude is not gender specific. Dude does not mean a male. You could say dude to your girlfriends, to guys, whatever. And sometimes it's just like an expletive, like dude. So that's a word that I use
Well,
quite
I
a
mean, I
lot.
wasn't raised in California, and I use dude a lot. I've
Yeah.
always used dude a lot. As a matter of fact, I can remember my freshman year of college, one of my roommates making fun of me for, he's like, quit calling me dude.
Yeah. And I think that there are some things that kind of also came from surfer culture, like gnarly,
Yeah, I think that's one that's still around.
bodacious.
Is that from surfer culture?
I think it is. Bitchin'.
Bitchin'. That was kind of a big word in the 70s, too, though.
Was it?
I think it was bigger in the 70s than the 80s.
You know, chill,
Chill.
tubular. That's
Tubular, that's surfer culture.
surfer
yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Though that one has died out.
That one,
you
I don't.
hear
That's
that
another one like
much.
"Gag Me with a Spoon" that I don't think you heard very much, except
Right.
unless it was in the media, right? And they're trying
Right.
to establish this person is a surfer.
Yeah.
You know, tubular.
Like the movie Valley Girl. They were all talking that way in the movie, but it was kind of a trope. It was
Yeah.
kind of forced. And I think also in that TV show Square Pegs.
Well, it's like Spicoli, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he says tubular. I'm sure he says tubular, and I'm sure Bill and Ted at some point say
Probably.
tubular. You know.
Yeah.
So, and where is Van Diemen? Van Diemen's, is that's not
San
the valley.
Dimas.
San Dimas, that's right.
No, it's east. It's east of LA.
Okay. Okay, so it's more inland. All right.
Yeah. Good water park there.
Waterloo.
That's right. All right, so what did the 80s look like? Like you walked into somebody's house in the 80s, what did it look like?
It looked a lot like the 70s. A lot of shag carpeting, a lot of faux wood panel or real wood paneling. Sometimes faux wood. A lot of wallpaper. Wallpaper was huge.
Popcorn ceilings.
Popcorn ceilings.
The TVs were like these big,
Oh my
ginormous console TV stereos too. Both were in like
Well,
these built into pieces of furniture. a lot of the
honestly, I
time.
miss the stereos from the 80s. Just music was such a much bigger part of my life, I think, back then. Or maybe not. I mean, we've got earbuds and stuff now, right?
Right.
But my parents had a big, I think it was an Onkyo system, and with those big tower speakers, and just
Yeah, our speakers are. I had a friend who had a van with a bed in the back, and he mounted those speakers in the back of his van, like up on the ceiling.
Wow.
And one time he drove over a speed bump and bounced me off the bed, and I like whacked my head on the speakers. It was old school. It was a 70s van.
yeah. Well, that whole thing sounds kind of 70s.
It was
but-
very 70s. This was in the 80s,
but I mean the colors, were harvest gold, avocado. You'd get this brown color. I don't even know that it has a classification.
Yeah, we had these sofas that were like floral print, but it was like brown.
Yeah, you
It
see,
was not a great look.
there was orange too, but it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the '90s. I think they went to black, and then now everything is stainless steel, right? That's how.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, or they went to white. I think is eventually. Because I remember my parents remade their kitchen in 1985, just in time for us to move the next year. But or maybe it was 1986. I don't remember, but 1985, I think. And that was when everything went white. When we had a white refrigerator instead of the brown refrigerator that we'd had before.
Well, I remember my first Walkman that I got. I remember my first boombox that I got. And it had like the dual cassette. So I could put one cassette in and then dub it over onto another one. I remember going to the beach in the 80s and taking my boombox.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get my first boombox until like high school, but my parents got me a stereo, but it was it was one of those Sears all-in-one stereo, and it had the two cassettes in it, so you could tape off of another cassette. My first Walkman, I think it was like 78 or 79. and I got a cassette for my birthday that year from my best friend, and it was Paul McCartney, "Tug of War." I can still hear it in my head, but I about burned up that tape on that. And technically, my first Walkman wasn't a Walkman because my family was
Mine
cheap.
was. Mine was a Sony
So
Walkman.
it was not branded. Now, later on, my grandparents took matters into their own hand, and this was probably like 8th or ninth grade. They bought me a Walkman that was actually branded a Walkman.
My best friend in elementary school had an Atari. Do you remember your first
Oh.
Atari?
Yeah, yeah.
I played some Frogger on that.
We had
that
Pong.
was my favorite.
My-
Pong, yeah, I remember.
And
Pong.
I'm like, well, how did we end up with Pong? Because my parents never spent any money on anything that
I
they didn't have to.
I didn't have Pong, but a friend of mine had Pong, and then
I'll
my
bet
friend had
someone
Atari.
gave it to them. But yeah, Atari 2600, played that for years and years and years.
Waterbeds.
I had a waterbed.
My friend who had the van also had a waterbed.
And people talk trash about waterbeds, but I loved my waterbed. I've
Yeah.
got nothing bad to say about it. You know, it had a heater on it. In the summer, you could turn it down. In the winter, you could turn it up. I loved my waterbed.
All right. So let's get back to the topic of our podcast, which is Nerds Over 40.
Yes.
So, one of the things that we frequently do when we're on car trips or whatever is we do top 5 lists. And we got that from the movie High Fidelity. I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, but it's great, starring John Cusack. And he does all these top 5 lists of things. So, Neil, what are your top 5 80s movies?
Oh, top 5 80s movies. Well, let's start with the Goonies, huh? Goonies Never Say Die. I love that movie. There's a story there. I don't know if I want to bore you with it, but it just family members introduced me to that movie, and it was just a very special summer that summer because the other movie that came out in 1985 was Back to the Future, which is about as close to a perfect movie as.
Is that on your list too, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Back to the Future is also on my list.
We'll start with the Goonies, then you can go to Back to the Future.
Yeah, so those two movies are just and shared with the same family members, cousins, and my favorite aunt, and just it was great. Top Gun, you gotta have Top Gun in there. That was just such a big deal, and the had the great soundtrack, and it was a fun movie to watch, and America wins, and so it was it was a lot of fun to watch.
We were just talking about Top Gun. We were talking about Maverick because we were saying that Maverick is one of the best sequels we've seen.
So, note to movie makers who decide to take a 30-year pause between movies. If you're going to make or 20-year or 15-year pause, if you're going to your follow-up should be good. So, George Lucas, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Are you Lucas bashing?
No.
No. Not at all.
Aliens, the second movie in
Speaking of good sequels.
Alien franchise. It was done by James Cameron, and James Cameron takes a lot of flack, and he's got an ego that's big enough he can take it. But Aliens is great. Ripley kicks ass.
Sigourney Weaver. Props. Major props.
It's a really good movie. And then, last but not least, number 5, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You can't talk about movies in the 80s without talking about a John Huston movie.
John Hughes.
John Hughes, yeah, John Hughes, and I think of all the movies he made, none of them are more fun than Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It had great music in it, and Matthew Broderick is he is so charming, and you're just like, God, I don't know if I would have wished I could have been a little bit like him, because just nothing bothered him.
Well, everybody wanted to be Ferris. Ferris is the coolest.
Ferris, and he made it look so, Ferris is cool, effortless.
Mm-hmm.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Great movie. That's a movie that I actually think that movie's aged pretty well. Some of those John Hughes movies did not age well, right? But I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I think you could watch it today and still enjoy that movie.
100%.
And not be like, ooh.
100%.
So those are, The Goonies, Back to the Future, Aliens, Top Gun, and
Ferris
Ferris
Bueller.
Bueller's Day Off. I think that maybe not. I don't know if it's the best, but those are movies that I think encapsulate the '80s.
Okay. Shall I do mine?
Of course.
All right. First one for me is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Woo, that one's hot.
Best adventure movie ever, in
Coming
my
in
opinion.
hot. Yeah.
Plus, I have a memory of it. So, in 1980, I moved to Germany. My dad got a teaching job over there, and I lived there from 80 to 82. And he decided he was going to take me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark while we were living there. I don't know why my mom and my sister didn't come along, but we went to see it at the airport, the Flughafen, because they showed movies in English at the airport. And who were the bad guys in that movie? So it was kind of a surreal experience, but love that movie. That's another movie I've watched a million times. Number 2 would be The Lost Boys.
Oh.
And I've
Speaking of great soundtracks.
great soundtrack. The soundtrack actually outsold the movie by a lot. But I have a special relationship with The Lost Boys because I live in Santa Cruz. And The Lost Boys was filmed here in Santa Cruz. They called it Santa Carla. And I always thought that was a choice by the filmmakers. But recently I found out, no, Santa Cruz did not want to be named with all these vampires going around murdering. First R-rated movie I saw in the theater made my top 5, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
Eddie Murphy was synonymous with 80s movies. My opinion is the best one was Beverly Hills Cop. Hilarious, fun,
Soundtrack again.
awesome soundtrack. There were a bunch of other
Pointer Sisters.
I liked The Golden Child. He was great in that.
Yeah, that's
I
Golden
liked
Child
the
was
second
entertaining.
Beverly Hills Cop. Loved Eddie Murphy. And I think my 5th choice would be The Breakfast Club. So again, we're talking about John Hughes.
John Hughes.
But it was a moment in time for me. So I went to see that with a bunch of my friends in high school. I was just starting high school when it came out, and one of my friends was a senior, had a car, picked us up. It was the first time like one of my friends had a car and took us anywhere, and we went to see The Breakfast Club. And it was just like this moment of like, wow, I'm in high school and I was feeling it, and this movie's set in high school.
That one's
and it was-
R-rated, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
don't know if
I think it was
or not.
R-rated. So I didn't see it in the '80s. I don't think I saw it until the '90s, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, well,
It's okay.
it was,
I think
you were
it's
in
a
a
moment in
different
time.
place.
It's
Yeah,
a moment in time.
And I
yeah.
mean, most movies are like that. Movies speak to different people for different reasons. That one spoke to me, and that also had a great soundtrack. And my friend who actually drove me to the movies used to write me letters after he graduated from high school, and he always signed it, "Don't you forget about me." So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
He actually passed away a couple of years ago, but I have not forgotten about him. So Scott, shout out to you for that. So that kind of brings us to, kind of who were the heavy hitters in the 80s in entertainment.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Eddie Murphy.
Oh, I mean, if you're talking about like director Spielberg and
Right.
and he and Lucas was still doing
And John Hughes.
John Hughes.
I mean, how many John Hughes? There was 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club, Some Kind of Wonderful, Weird Science. Those felt like a moment in time to me. They felt very 80s.
Oh, those were that's like they froze the '80s in amber.
Yeah. In terms of actors, I would say John Cusack. He's one of my favorites. He's approximately the same age as I am. So like when he was acting as a teenager, I was a teenager. When he did Grosse Point Blank, that was the same year as my high school reunion. I feel like I've kind of grown up with him.
Well, you talk about so a lot of the actors that we focus on too aren't necessarily like adult actors, because you have some actors like Jessica Lange and Robert Hurt, is that his name?
John Hurt?
John Hurt. I don't whatever. But these actors doing dramatic pieces, which in the '80s, I'm a kid. I've got zero interest in
Right.
The Big Chill, or it wasn't Everyday People. It was
Ordinary People.
Ordinary People. And I can't imagine a movie I would rather see less than a movie named Ordinary People. But apparently it was good. I mean, critics liked it, but they'll like anything.
Yeah, I mean the people we liked. So, Tom Cruise,
Tom Cruise, huge. For 40 years later, he's still huge.
Michael J. Fox,
Yeah, yeah. Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean there was a whole group of actors that kind of came of age on TV, and then progressed into movies. So
Yeah.
Chevy Chase, Michael J. Fox. Tom Hanks was in Bosom Buddies.
Yes.
And then he did Splash and he did Big.
Yeah.
I would say. And then there were a lot of comedians.
Yeah, Tom
you know.
Hanks had a pretty good, movieography before he even won an Academy Award. And then.
Yeah, I think there were like a lot of, so like comedians, there was obviously Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor was really big, Gene Wilder was really big,
yeah.
Gilda Radner was really big.
Well, all those Saturday Night Live people.
Bill Murray.
Bill frickin' Murray. You had.
I mean, Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
hello.
oh God, Ghostbusters. Talk
And
about
Dan Aykroyd was in that too.
Talk about an outsized impact. I mean, it was a very, very popular movie, but it just, I don't know, there was something, it got into the collective unconsciousness. It was amazing.
It did. So
How did we not mention Ghostbusters in our top 5
I know
movies of the
that should
80s?
be on both of ours.
Oh, God, we suck. You can be sure to mention that in the comments.
That's right. So now let's talk about our last topic. What the influence of the 80s is now. So I would say there's been a lot of like homages to the 80s.
Yeah.
So Stranger Things is one that I would mention. Hot Tub Time Machine.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Speaking of John Cusack.
Well, and J.J. Abrams made one. I can never remember what the name of it was, but it was, when I saw Stranger Things, I was like, oh, this is what he was trying to do.
Well, Spielberg did one too. Didn't he do Super 8? Wasn't that Spielberg?
No, I think that was J.J. Abrams, I think.
Okay. I thought that was Spielberg.
No.
I don't know. Okay. But yeah, it was Stranger Things became what that was trying to do.
Yeah.
And Stranger Things did it better.
Oh, and since we're speaking of the 80s, we talked about this a little bit last episode, but, one of those books that has a lot of 80s culture in it is
Ready Player
One.
Yeah.
So
If you haven't read it, go read it.
going to the video arcade, we can't not talk about, we can't talk about the 80s without talking about arcades.
Yeah, arcades
And,
were a thing.
I still to this day get a thrill every time I see a roll of quarters.
Yeah. Well, they went to the arcade in Stranger Things. The arcade was a big thing, and that's where they met Max,
Yeah, I mean,
who is my favorite character in Stranger Things.
well,
Mad
that's
Max.
that's
She's
where you
awesome.
could get games that were much more. Well, they were much cooler than the Atari 2600, right? I mean, now your home system is as good as anything you can see at an arcade.
You can play all those arcade games on your phone, basically.
Yeah, that's. I mean, those old arcade games are kind of lame now compared to. It's little Neil would be blown away by the games that they have now. It's
No,
just
for sure.
amazing.
So, let's talk about 80s sequels versus 80s remakes.
Oh, okay.
So, sequels, Cobra Kai, sequel for The Karate Kid. How do
Yeah.
we feel about that?
So I've got mixed feelings about that. I mean, I think they've taken it too. I am so done with Karate Kid. We saw the last.
We just went and saw
The
it
last
a
movie.
couple weeks ago, I think.
And I mean, my God, can you teach your kids to do something besides punch each other?
Talk about needing a helmet.
Oh my! These kids are all going to
Like
have.
concussions.
They're going to have CTE by the time they're in their 30s.
Yeah,
It's-
no, it was crazy. That one scene where they were hitting the like turnstile in the subway over and over
Dude.
again. It's like, hey,
Well,
stop.
and the bad guy just kicks some guy in the head from out of nowhere. You know,
Yeah.
just. And you watch the series on Netflix, and it's just like, oh, for God's sake, do you have to start fighting again? It's just anyway.
There's a lot of fighting.
And I don't. And the thing that got me in the last movie is I didn't think there was like anything that really. There weren't any uplifting themes at all. Even it just.
He who kicks harder wins.
It's the same. I mean, and It wasn't. I mean, to me, it was. You've seen the first one, right? But it's just more stuff, and that's
And
so.
the music wasn't as good.
Kevin Smith has talked about sequelitis, and sequelitis is to him that's when you make something that people like, and you aren't really sure where to go with it next, but you just give them more of
Isn't
what
he
they
in the
had
middle of
already.
making a Dogma sequel right now?
Oh, dude.
And how many Clerks sequels and Jay and Silent Bob?
But the thing is that I think at least the
Not to
second.
bag on you, Kevin, but
Well, I think that the second Clerks movie,
awesome.
I think it was great. I think he had something new to say.
that may be my favorite Kevin Smith movie is
Well,
Clerks 2.
Dogma is my favorite, and I think you know what in Dogma he might have a new Dogma. He might have something more to say about it.
See.
But he talks about sequelitis as you're just giving more stuff without really
Yeah.
having any inspiration for it, and that's what Cobra Kai is sequelitis. Getting the storyline of kind of the redemption of Johnny, that was the part I enjoyed. But he's been redeemed now. Let's let it go, for God's sake. No one cares about karate.
So let's talk about a good sequel.
Okay, sorry.
Quantum Leap.
Oh,
Quantum Leap was good. I was reticent about watching it, but it's a continuation. It's it's not a remake, it's a continuation, and I thought it was incredibly well done. I was really into it.
I really
and
enjoyed
the way
the cast.
They tied like the head guy who was where we met him was amazing.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was really, really good.
They tied it into the old Quantum Leap,
Yeah.
and they were actually the mission was to go back and rescue Sam.
Yeah.
Because that Quantum Leap, the original Quantum Leap, for those of you who don't know, that it ended kind of on a cliffhanger, and then they canceled it. They thought they were going to get one more season, and it got canceled. So Sam is still lost out there someplace.
Yeah, there's no Scott Bakula in the reboot or
in the sequel. It's not a reboot.
Yeah.
But they're going to try and rescue him, and I was so hoping they'd be able to finish that story arc because that would have
bring
been
him back.
That would have been amazing. You know what? I mean, yeah. So you're not making any money off of it. You do that for the art, man. Take one for the team.
Do it for
here.
the fans.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that was really good.
There weren't enough fans tuning in, but it would have been. And the show itself, just even without that sort of tie-in with the original Quantum Leap,
It was well done.
It was a good story. The stories were
very well
good.
done.
The cast was the guy they cast as kind of the new Leaper. He was fantastic. There wasn't a member that it had Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
He was the kind of the guy who was heading up the project.
And he's the one that was the tie-in with the original Quantum
Yeah.
Leap, and like it was really
Anyway,
really
yeah,
good.
that show was
Yeah.
that was a good show. I'm sad that one I'm sad that one didn't make it.
Those are sequels. Let's talk about remakes.
We've got another sequel that we have to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
Maverick.
Yeah, Maverick was great.
I mean, that is
Maverick was
when you've got
great.
30 years. When it's been 30 years since you've made the first one, you better come hard.
And I wasn't sure I even wanted to see it because there's been a million Mission Impossible movies, and I'm kind of burned out on Tom Cruise.
And Tom Cruise has been demonstrably crazy
yes,
since then too.
he's lost the thread. Not as bad as Mel Gibson, but still not great. But it was interesting because there was all this buzz around, and I'm like, okay, let's go see it. And then it was great.
Yeah,
it was so good.
It was really good. Well done. Yeah, the story. Yeah, that was one that was. I mean, a lot of people liked it better than the first one. It was great.
I might like it better.
So,
all right, remakes.
Ghostbusters, I think, is the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah,
and this is
not done
sad.
well.
This is sad because it's a waste of talent. Because I actually think those ladies are great. I think they're funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest mistake wasn't in casting women. I think where it was a mistake is that they branded it as a reboot instead of a sequel. If they had done it as a sequel, make one of the women like the niece or daughter of one of the original Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. I think people would have liked it.
Well, they had Bill Murray in it, and they threw him out a window or something. It was terrible.
They had him, they had Ernie, and they had Dan Aykroyd in it. They had all three of them in it. I mean, actually, I think him being thrown out the window was pretty funny. I think that the '80s biggest legacy, actually, though, is the music.
Which we're going to do on a separate.
Well, but just tying it in with movies, to this day, how often do you go to the movies or on a television show and they're using '80s music?
Oh, they are.
in the
they
movie?
absolutely are.
I mean, I think that's just because the music now is just is just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just not very good for that. So that's why you're seeing. Well, we were watching a movie. I think it was we were watching a television show, Sex Education on Netflix, and I think I looked over at you. You looked over at me, and we're like, "What? When was this set?" Because
Yeah.
the music was all 80s.
And then somebody pulled out a cell phone.
Yeah, I'm finally
we're
like,
like,
okay, it's
oh,
set
it's
now.
current. It's not set in the 80s.
But the music is all 80s music. And I think that just somewhere something went wrong with pop music, where it just doesn't emotionally connect in a lot of these scenes where they need some sort of emotional connection. Anyway, I wanted to bring up the music.
And that's
the music
to be
of the 80s.
continued because we will be doing an 80s music episode. And there'll be lots to talk about then and argue about it.
That's right.
But for now, I think that we've pretty much covered the 80s. You know, if you've come this far, we appreciate it. And drop your top 5 80s movies in the comments. Maybe there's something there that we haven't seen or we haven't seen in a long time. And
there's lots of top 5. Give us your top 5 forgotten 80s movies.
Yeah.
You know, hey, and that was the decade of the McNugget too.
That it? Okay.
They came out with McNuggets in the 80s.
I'll give you one of my top 5 forgotten 80s movies. This is a deep, deep dive, and you're going to have to look to try to find it. My Chauffeur. Watch it and thank me.
Ice Pirates. You're welcome.
All right.
Nerdmigos, thanks for tuning in again. If you stuck with us to the end, we appreciate it.
Yes, and next week we will have seen Superman. And so we're going to be talking about Superman next week. And coming up soon, we're going to be talking about Comic-Con. So please keep joining us and like and subscribe. Live long and prosper.
Take care.